guys, it is Aoife from Proud VC Died Laughing, and I am here to do a different kind of video today than what I normally do. This isn't really a book video or a book review video, it's more of a discussion video a little bit about a character in a book. So this week, if you guys have kept up with my biannual Bibliothon TBR, I was reading Turtles All the Way Down by John Green, which is his new book, and it focuses on a girl called Aza who suffers quite badly from anxiety and OCD, and we're just kind of following her as she tries to uncover this mystery around this missing billionaire that lives in her neighbourhood, and she is friends with the billionaire's son. She and her best friend Daisy are kind of trying to investigate a little bit to try and see if they can get the reward for finding him. And this isn't going to be a review of this book. I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 4.5 stars, but I don't want to go into all the different bits about why I liked it. I wanted to talk about one character in particular, and it's a character that when I have watched previously, when I've watched people review this book or have it in their wrap up for non-spoiler book reviews, obviously before I read it, most people, not everyone, but a lot of people were like, they would talk about the book and then they'd have this little side note at the end and they'd go, oh my god, Daisy is such a bad friend, she is the worst friend in the world, I really hated Daisy. So I was going into this thinking, what is so wrong with Daisy? What does she do? And as I was reading it and I was kind of uncovering maybe some of the things that people obviously did not like about Daisy, I was sitting there with my book in my hand going, oh my god, I relate to Daisy so much. I really liked her, and I understood a lot of the things she did that annoyed other people. So I'm going to get into a little bit about what Daisy does and why I think that, you know, it doesn't make her a bad friend. So this is going to be kind of spoilery, so if you do not want to know, please go away, read the book and come back when you do, because this will probably contain some spoilers for you. So obviously with this book, a lot of people, majority of readers seem to relate a lot to Aza because obviously its own voices and it's very good rep for mental illness, mental health. She does suffer from OCD and anxiety. She has a lot of these thought spirals, and literally from like one of the very first pages we're seeing how it's almost like she can be sitting in public and she gets trapped in one of her thought spirals, and it's like she can't hear anything else around her apart from her thoughts. She's aware that she's kind of part of another conversation in public with her friends or with teachers or her family, but she in her head is just thinking all these weird thoughts about things she's worrying about. And straight away in the very first page we see how her friend Daisy needs to try and snap her back to attention and saying, like, you know, trying to get her to answer, you know, worries a little bit about her because she hasn't talked that much that day, and you know, they do their own thing, they have their own friendship like things that they do. They go to Applebee's and they get their burgers, and Daisy's really into Star Wars. She writes a lot of Star Wars fan fiction between Chewbacca and Rey, which is like really weird, but that's a whole other thing. And Aza has never read any of this fan fiction, even though she's been friends with Daisy for years, and we see a little bit of talk about like Daisy's personal life. We see her mention it a few times, but we never really get into it. We never really, you know, we never see Aza really conversing with Daisy about a lot of her home life. There is a point in the book where Aza's thoughts have gotten pretty bad, and we see Daisy saying, how can I help you? Like, she wants to help Aza, she just doesn't really know how. And because of Aza's particular, like, you know, anxiety, it's not really something that someone can have a quick fix to. It's not something that someone can just say something and she'll be better. And so like Aza doesn't really have an answer to that, even though Daisy desperately wants to help. And there's this whole thing in this book about how Daisy kind of lets out her frustration at Aza, and how instead of talking to Aza, she ends up kind of creating this character in her Star Wars fanfiction that is very reminiscent to Aza, but is basically Aza in the Star Wars universe, and she is kind of this character that a lot of her readers love to hate. She is not a very likable character, she's very annoying, she's very anxious, she messes up a lot, and in a way it's definitely, you can see that it's a way of Daisy letting out her frustration at Aza without actually talking to Aza and possibly really hurting Aza. And for myself as a reader, I totally understood why this ended up happening, why Daisy chose to put this character in her Star Wars fanfiction, because for one, Aza has never, they've been friends for so long, and Aza has never ever read her fanfiction. She's never bothered to read her fanfiction, which, you know, is probably a little bit hurtful to Daisy, that Aza never really, like, you know, she watches the Star Wars movies with Daisy, but you know, she doesn't really take that interest in terms of creative content that Daisy is actually making and putting out there. And so it's obviously, Daisy kind of felt like this Star Wars fanfiction was a safe place to maybe at first get her frustration out at Aza by making this character that is obviously very similar to Aza. And this is, I think, is why people, you know, this kind of all comes to a head when Aza finds out, and she's very, very upset by it, obviously, which is very understandable as well. And they kind of have this shouting match, and Daisy more or less says to Aza, she says, "It's so hard being friends with you. I love you, but it's hard. Your anxiety makes it hard." And there's times where she's saying, you know, she calls her Holmesy, she calls Aza Holmesy, and she kind of sometimes tells her to disconnect her Aza thoughts from her Holmesy thoughts to try and, you know, make anxious Aza go away, basically, and for Holmesy to be there in the moment and enjoying life. And you can see Daisy really struggling with this a lot, about how she can help Aza without, you know, obviously being overbearing and obviously saying mean things. And some things do come out, which happens a lot in any kind of friendship, any kind of argument in a friendship. Sometimes there are these arguments that blow out of proportion, and a lot of things are said, and a lot of hurtful things are said. And so Daisy, a lot of like the stuff that Daisy's obviously bottled down for a very long time come out, and she tells Aza how selfish she is because of her anxiety, and her anxiety do know some of her mental health issues, and her anxiety do make her a selfish person and make her very self-centered, which I don't think is a totally invalid point. I do think that that is something that can happen. What I can see, if people have anxiety like Aza did in this book, you can see how it can kind of make people, you know, they're in their own thoughts a lot of the time. They're maybe not so much conversing a lot with the people around them as much, and while it obviously can cut yourself off, if you are the one suffering from anxiety, you're cutting yourself off from your social group, in a way you're also cutting out other people. And again, I'm not saying that this is a terrible thing, it's just something that happens, unfortunately. But you can see, I could just see why Daisy was upset, and I could understand her frustration. And yes, maybe it was a slightly passive-aggressive thing to put this character in her Star Wars fiction, but the thing is that I just totally understood her, because I feel like I've been that friend in like when I was younger, when I was a teenager. I was definitely stuck in this friendship. It wasn't anything to do like with Aza and her anxiety, but I was definitely stuck in this friendship where I felt like I didn't have a voice, and I felt very trapped and very, you know, muffled, and I didn't know how to let out my frustration in what can be, I guess, a healthy way that wouldn't end up with me hurting myself in any way. And writing has always been a source of, you know, release for me. It's been a source of relaxation in a way, and I did take to writing in this corner of the internet that I never thought my friend would find, and I let out some of my frustration there, and eventually it was found. And, you know, I did end up having an argument similar to what happened with Daisy and Aza. Obviously it was a pretty, you know, annoying and terrible thing to happen, but, you know, these things came out, and they came out into the open, and maybe, you know, they should have been out in the open all along. And in a way, that's what happened to Daisy and Aza. All those frustrations were kind of let out, all those things were said. Aza realised that yes, she could be a better friend, and Daisy realised that she needed to be a little bit more understanding to Aza's anxiety in a way that she wasn't, you know, writing fanfiction about it. There was something I was watching recently, which is actually, I don't know if anyone watches the Mandeville Sisters, and they do kind of vlog style videos, and one of the sisters, Amelia, she suffers quite badly from anxiety, and she has a lot of phobias that cause her anxiety as well. And she actually recently put up a video, which I think is really, like, it's just really good, well timing for myself, and then reading this book and seeing like the stuff that Daisy was saying to Aza about being selfish and being self-centered. Amelia and Grace actually put up this video very recently, I will link it down below, about how Amelia's anxiety kind of not ruined, but put a bit of a dampener on a family holiday they took recently, because Amelia ended up getting, she has a phobia of getting sick basically, and there was a stomach bug going around the hotel, and she basically got very, very anxious, and she basically made, I guess, other people in her family a little bit uncomfortable, and ruined some of their like kind of outings a little bit, because she was so upset. Her boyfriend obviously had to try and comfort her, so his holiday wasn't as like exactly as he would have planned, and she did do a very good video about how it made her a little bit selfish, and how, you know, it reflected, you know, how it affected the people in her family and the people around her, and I just thought it was a really good video, and I think it is a little bit reminiscent of what happens with Aza and Daisy in this one, so I will leave a link down below if you want to see that. But yeah, so basically this video is me just saying that I understand Daisy, and I don't think Daisy's actions make her a bad friend. I think what it does, it makes her a human friend. She's a human being. She's not a perfect person. She is a flawed human. Human beings are flawed. Sometimes we don't know how to voice our thoughts, how to voice our frustrations and voice our opinions, so we end up doing it in different ways, and sometimes those ways aren't the best ways to do it. And yeah, Daisy's a teenage girl, and like a lot of teenagers, a lot of teenage girls and teenage boys and just teenagers in general, we go about things the wrong way sometimes, and maybe she did here, but at the same time I 100% get why she did it. I have been Daisy at times. I am Daisy, and yeah, I just wanted to basically voice a support of Daisy in this community, because so far all I've seen are people not really liking her so much, and I just wanted to put something out there to maybe try and explain a little bit about how she was thinking, and about why she did what she did. If you feel any way similar, if you've read this book, any opinions on Daisy, please leave them down below, because I would actually really love to see them. This is kind of a spur of the moment video, so I'm sorry if it was all over the place. But yeah, this is obviously something I feel a little bit passionately about, and go read this book because it was very good. And yeah, Team Daisy all the way.